Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego lived in a country far from home. They loved Jesus, but the people in the country did not. The king of Babylon wanted to show how big and strong he was, and so he built a great big golden idol. And he wanted everyone to come and to bow down and worship that idol. It would show that his kingdom was the strongest kingdom and would last forever. So Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego all came and they stood in front of the idol, and lots and lots and lots of other people were there. It was a great big crowd, and they were told, when the music plays, everyone must bow down to the idol. So they waited and listened, and when the music started to play, everybody in that great big crowd bowed down to that idol, except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They stood tall because they didn't want to dishonor Jesus. They wanted to show that this was not something that would please him. One of the king's servants saw them and went and told the king, and the king called for them to come to him, and they did. They came and stood in front of him, and the king realized that these were three of his best helpers, and he said, "Maybe you didn't understand. When the music plays, I need you to bow down to the idol." And they said, "Oh, king, we understood, but we cannot bow down to your idol. We worship the God in heaven." And the king was angry, and he said, "I want those men put into the fiery furnace." And the men said to him, "Our God will deliver us from the fiery furnace. He is strong and he is able to help us. But even if he chooses not to, we will not bow down to your idol." So the king was even angrier, and he commanded that the fiery furnace be made even hotter. And then he told his soldiers to take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and put them into the fiery furnace. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were tied up and thrown into the hot, fiery furnace. The king was watching to make sure that everything was done as he had commanded, and that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were put in. And as he looked, suddenly he saw 4 people in the fire, and he said, "Didn't we throw 3 men in? But I see 4 people in that, and one of them looks like Jesus." And he didn't know what to do because the men were in there walking around. They weren't hurt. They were fine. And so the king commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego come out of the fiery furnace. The king looked at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They didn't have any burns on them. Their hair was fine. Their clothes weren't singed. They didn't even smell like smoke. The only thing that had burned was the ropes that had tied them up. Everybody could see now that it wasn't the king or his idol that were strong. They knew that the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was the strongest one. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were brave and stood up for Jesus, and he was with them even in the middle of the fire. God is with us too, and when we choose to follow him and to stand up for him, he is always going to be with us as well. Our memory verse today comes from Daniel chapter 3, verse 17. It says, "Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us." I'd like for you to take a moment now and say that to your mom or dad. Daniel 3:17. Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us.